There are two types or general categories of synthetic fibers used in fabric. Here we can see a sort of family tree of all available synthetic fibers. So synthetic fibers are created for many uses, not just for fabrics, for the design and fashion industries, but made for many, many other uses in construction and other. The kinds of synthetic fibers are split into two different groups, organic and inorganic. The ones used for fashion fall into the organic category. Now, don't get excited about it being organic. That does not mean it is good for the environment or anything like that. There are many definitions of the word organic. So if we talk about organic farming, that means a list of methods that are used by and implemented by a farmer, which could mean no pesticides, organic fertilizers, so on and so forth. When we talk about organic and inorganic in this sense, it is the chemistry definition of organic and inorganic. That means that organic just means it has carbon in it, nothing else. Inorganic means it does not have carbon in the molecular composition of the polymers. That's it. From there, we are split again into two different groups, the natural polymers and the synthetic polymers. Now, don't be confused, because natural polymers are not considered natural fibers. They are still considered synthetic fibers. It is just that their base comes from a natural source, such as wood pulp. They are still considered synthetic fibers used to create synthetic fabrics. Natural polymers use plant material in their synthesis, and synthetic polymers are synthesized more similarly to plastics. The history of synthetics. The first synthetic fibers to be produced were natural synthetics, meaning they were derived from plant compounds. Joseph Swan invented the first artificial fiber in the early 1880s. So this was the very birth of synthetic fibers. He used a cellulose liquid created from chemically modified fiber found in tree bark. The first commercially used synthetic fiber was viscose, which was created by the English chemist Charles Frederick Cross. However, it was not until 1930 that the first fully synthetic fiber was created by the American scientist Wallace Carothers for the DuPont Chemical Corporation. Let's first take a look at our natural polymers. Again, these are synthetic fabrics that use plant compounds in their synthesis. Most of these fabrics will use the viscose process, seen here. Now, even though that these are called natural polymers, as you can see, this is not a terribly natural process. Again, the only reason we call it a natural polymer is because we start with wood pulp, flakes, or some other plant material. That plant material then goes through a very complicated series of chemical reactions where it finally is extruded by our spinnerets and then spun into yarn. Viscose and rayon are often used interchangeably, and sometimes side by side, specifying viscose rayon or rayon viscose. But rayon Rayon is typically used as the fabric or fiber created by using the viscose process. Again, which was one of the first processes that really was solidified to create commercially viable amounts of synthetic fibers. However, sometimes people just call the fabric viscose as well. The production of viscose fiber is a complex one, which starts with wood pulp and involves many chemical reactions along the way, as we saw before. This is the original way to make synthetic fabrics, and many variations on the process exist. However, viscose rayon always uses the viscose method. Rayon can be made to imitate the look of many different natural fibers, but is probably most often used to imitate silk, as it can mimic the shiny, slippery feel of silk very well. Fun little history: there was a great blight in the silkworm population in France at this time. And so, the reason that really propelled a lot of scientists to look into synthetic versions was this problem in the silk moth population. They were not able to produce the amounts of silk that they wanted. So, many scientists were looking into a way of imitating silk. Rayon was the first one, and again, is still used as an imitation silk today. However, we can use it in many, many different versions, just like we'll see with all of these synthetic fibers. They typically have a natural fiber that they're best at imitating, but can be altered and made in many different ways to imitate many different types and properties of fabrics. Natural polymers like viscose rayon are much more absorbent than our fully synthetic polymers like polyester. Acetate. The term acetate is used a lot. It is just a chemical compound that uses acetic acid combined with a base. However, the acetate that is made into clothing is called cellulose acetate, as again, it uses a process very similar to the viscose process to produce rayon. So, it starts with cellulose. Cellulose is pretty much just a scientific term for plant material. Cellulose is found in all plants and is the chemical compound that we use when we are trying to make natural polymers. The process of creating acetate is so similar to rayon that acetate is thought of as a type of rayon. In fashion, acetate is mostly used to create a thin, fairly crisp, shiny fabric that is most often used as a lining fabric. However, higher-end acetate also makes for a great silk substitute, just like rayon. Trade names for this product include Acel, Avisco, Celanese, Chromespun, and Estron. Modal. Modal uses Modal used exclusively beech tree wood pulp and uses a modified version of the viscose process. The modified viscose process to create modal improves the fabric properties, making it stronger and softer than other acetates or rayons. Modal can come in many forms, but is often blended with cotton and or spandex and knitted into jersey-like fabrics. You can find modal most often in underwear and socks, but can be found in other fabrics. Lyocell. Lyocell is a process to create natural polymers similar to the viscose process. It is seen as an improvement to the viscose method as it produces high-quality fibers with less chemical waste, although it is energy intensive, which makes it more expensive than the viscose process, which has made it slow to take off. Lyocell has a pleasing, airy feel and can serve as a substitute for many fibers, and amazingly so, is more absorbent than cotton, which is incredible because the cotton is wildly absorbent, and not being absorbent is a common trait associated with our synthetic fibers, whether they are natural polymers or synthetic polymers. Again, natural polymers tend to be a bit more absorbent than our synthetic ones, which really aren't absorbent at all. But for us to have a synthetic fiber that is more absorbent than cotton is pretty wild. Fabrics made with lyocell fibers are most often sold under the trade name Tencel, which is the company that came up with the process of creating it, or the lyocell process in itself.